Dog goes woof, cat goes meow, bird goes tweet, and the mouse goes squeak, cow goes moo, frog.
So today we're taking a look at everyone's favorite tree hugger, the Druid. Now, this is going to be a class guide telling you, from a designer standpoint, how this class is intended to be played, at least what the class features are trying to inform you to do in combat and kind of inspire you to do outside of combat. So we're covering the 3 pillars of play: the combat, exploration, and interaction pillars. Druid, especially really early on in the edition, enjoyed a lot of hyper dominance. People were rolling up Circle of the Moon Druids all the time because the class was just the most absurd tank option that you could go with in the player's handbook. It mostly seemed like players were kind of overlooking land because it just wasn't really as exciting as Circle of the Moon. Now, I think what happened after that, whenever we saw like Xanthar's Guide come out, this favorability, right, for like moon over land seemed to cause some, I don't want to say confusion, but some possible disagreements about how a druid subclass should be designed, because we see that their subclass scaffolding has varied probably more widely than any of the other classes, maybe aside from sorcerer, in terms of what the class loadout is trying to give you like in the subclass. Ross and I went way more in depth into like the druid subclass confusion throughout the edition, actually in an eye patch and monocle that I'll link somewhere over here. But now let's just get into this class and its features. With your class features, you're going to get a D8 hit die, so this is telling me pretty much this is going to be a midliner. Your proficiencies, you're going to get light armor, medium armor, and shields. And it has this cute little, like, druids won't wear armor or shields made of metal. You know, yeah, that's cute. But realistically, what this means right here with you getting medium armor and the D8 hit die, yeah, you are definitely going to be comfortable in the midline. We see this type of playstyle is also present in the cleric, because cleric needs to be able to get up into the front line to potentially like tap somebody and cure wounds them, so they give you that D8 for a little bit of safety. So with you also being able to function as a party healer, they have to give you this D8 hit die. They're giving you the medium armor. They don't give you a disengagement tool here within the class, but it's possible for you to possibly get one through wild shape. The weapons, Druid has like the most specific list here: clubs, daggers, darts, javelins, maces, quarterstaffs, scimitars, sickles, slings, spears. Yeah, you get tool proficiency with herbalism kit, so you can actually be making potions of healing outside of combat. Saving throws are going to be intelligence and wisdom. Skills, you're going to choose 2 from arcana, animal handling, insight, medicine, nature, perception, religion, and survival. So with this mix-up right here, we're getting a bit of like the party heart and like a survivalist scout navigator. Yeah, you got a lot of options that you can go with this class, but I think Druid most likely is pushing you towards being that, like, with you being in tune with nature, of course, you're most likely going to be the one trying to guide the party throughout, like, traveling and whatnot. So the equipment that you're going to get here at first level is going to be a wooden shield or any simple weapon, a scimitar or any simple melee weapon, leather armor, an explorer's pack, and a druidic focus. With the base class loadout, I would not dump your decks. Don't dump your decks. I would likely say try to invest, at least get that dex up to like a +1. You can get the wooden shield up here, get the whatever melee weapon you want to go with, and then getting the leather armor. We're looking at most likely your AC is going to be around a 14, maybe a 15. I know I just really talked Druid up, really hyped it up, but we're starting out right now with likely just one of the most whatever first level features in the entire game with Druidic. You know Druidic, the secret language of druids. You can speak the language and use it to leave hidden messages. You and others who know this language automatically spot such a message. Others spot the message's presence with a successful DC 15 perception check, but can't decipher it without magic. I know what they were going for here. They wanted to make a language that was going to be kind of useful in potentially, like, if you split the party, or I don't know, you go off to go scout on your own, you can leave these messages or something like that. This just really doesn't come up much in practical play. In fact, I think in all the official adventure modules, there may only be one mention of this feature really, like, having any effect whatsoever. They're giving you a tool here to try and make it useful, which, like, I would hope that for a first level feature, that's not the kind of thing that we're really dishing out for a class. But you are getting full spellcasting progression right here at first level as well. So, like, I think that, again, in future versions of the game, we're probably just not going to see Druid getting just Druidic and spellcasting at first level. But there's spellcasting here. You're going to progress as a full caster. I'll make mention of a few things in here that you should probably know as a Druid. First off, starting out at first level, you're going to get 2 cantrips of your choice from the Druid spell list. You learn additional cantrips of your choice at higher levels, as shown in the cantrips known column of the Druid table. So scrolling up there, you're going to get your 2 cantrips here at first level. Then at 4th level, you're going to get another one. And then again at 10th level, you're going to get a 4th cantrip. Now, as far as flavor goes, the Druid spell list may be some of my favorite cantrips, like out of any of the cantrips in the game. As I usually do with the spellcasters, I'll make mention of a few cantrips here that either, yeah, you should take note of these, or hey, we've just seen that these don't really perform all that well in play, so heads up. I know we've got a little bit of a bummer here, but Control Flames, just a heads up. This one might sound really cool, but just in play, this one isn't really going to have much of any combat relevance outside of just shenanigans. All the power, everything that you're going to get out of this, you can accomplish through other cantrips. I would just really recommend not picking this one up. Craft, this is signature. This might as well have been given to you as a druid as a part of your spellcasting. Wizards are known for Prestidigitation as their shenanigan spell. This is Prestidigitation vis-a-vis druid. With a casting time of 1 action, components being verbal and somatic, and the duration being instantaneous, you whisper to the spirits of nature, creating one of the following effects within range. You create a tiny, harmless sensory effect that predicts what the weather will be at your location for the next 24 hours. The effect might manifest as a golden globe for clear skies, a cloud for rain, falling snowflakes for snow, and so on. This effect persists for 1 round, so for 6 seconds you get a little bit of a heads up as to what weather is going on. For me, as a survival-heavy DM, this one we get a lot of love at my tables. This one right here in particular. You instantly make a flower blossom, a seed pod open, or a leaf bud bloom. That's just adorable. You create an instantaneous, harmless sensory effect, such as falling leaves, a puff of wind, the sound of a small animal, or the faint odor of skunk. The effect must fit in a 5-foot cube, so there's your shenanigans right there. You instantly light or snuff out a candle, a torch, or a small campfire. So while this one can start up a bonfire for you, this just further proves why you should probably take Druidcraft over Control Flames, because Control Flames can only affect non-magical flames that you can see within range. That fits within a 5-foot cube, and you can affect it in one of these following ways. This one is way too specific here, so the flame already has to exist for you to really get use out of this cantrip. Druidcraft, this is just an easy pickup. For you, if you're not going for super high heavy combat only cantrips at first level, this one is a really fun pickup. Guidance is here. I talked about this one in my cleric video. Guidance is really easily spammable to help out with these ability checks. This is one that I actually would predict that in the future versions of D&D we may see change because of just how easily spammable this thing is. But the target can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to one ability check of its choice. It can roll the die before or after making the ability check, and then the spell ends. Now, it does require your concentration, but it lasts for up to 1 minute. This d4 that you're granting to that is basically like here at first level, and then all the way up until about 5th level, you're basically doubling their proficiency bonus to the check that they're going to make with it, right? If they're not proficient with the check, you're giving them that proficiency for a second here, because the average dice roll of a d4 is about 2.5. So yeah, guidance really at early levels, and it still maintains relevance later on, but god, this is a fantastic support cantrip. Infestation. As cool as this one sounds, like you want to be that swarm of insects kind of a druid, I don't recommend picking this one up. This one's dealing poison damage, and with you having limited access to cantrips, this should not be a priority pick basically at all, unless you're getting it for free somehow. I guess. Magic Stone. As cool as I want this cantrip to be, this just isn't really it. Because druid doesn't get extra attack, this cantrip just doesn't really play nice with the druid kit. Yeah, it's a little confusing. I think some people have told me that they figured out a build for Magic Stone that makes it decent, but I just think that you've got so many better options. Options like Mold Earth. This, in my opinion, is, oh man, this spell is scary, scary good. This can subvert entire adventure paths for you. With Mold Earth, casting time at 1 action, range of 30 feet, components are somatic, and the duration is instantaneous. This is Minecraft the spell. You choose a portion of dirt or stone that you can see within range and that fits within a 5-foot cube. You manipulate it in one of the following ways. If you target an area of loose earth, you can instantaneously excavate it, move it along the ground, and deposit it up to 5 feet away. This movement doesn't have enough force to cause damage. You cause shapes, colors, or both to appear on the dirt or stone, spelling out words, creating images, or shaping patterns. The changes last for 1 hour. If the dirt or stone you target is on the ground, you cause it to become difficult terrain. Alternatively, you can cause the ground to become normal terrain if it's already difficult terrain. The change lasts for 1 hour. If you cast the spell multiple times, you can have no more than 2 of its instantaneous or non-instantaneous effects active at a time, and you can dismiss such an effect as an action. It'll be worth noting here for you DMs out there, this can't actually break down like dungeon walls or anything like that. This specifically states right here, this must be an area of loose earth to, pick up the cube and move it around or whatever. Causing this thing to become difficult terrain doesn't actually mean that it shatters stone doors or anything like that. But what this can do is basically you can just mold earth like the foundation out from underneath a building. This cantrip is insanely strong. Just from pure shenanigan potential, the way that this can affect an adventure. Oh man, Mold Earth is insane. Produce Flame is going to be Druid's version of like Firebolt in a way. It's only going to deal a d8 of damage, but you can potentially just hold this like kind of in your hand and it doesn't hurt you. This is a really cool cantrip. I love this one for flavor, just picking this up because this one has not just combat relevance because it's going to do the d8 of damage, but you also get you get the whole, I don't know, this one's just so cool. I love the cinematics in this one. Shillelagh, I love this cantrip so much. I want this to be so good. There's just not really a lot of great support for it right now. You can go with a Gish, kind of like a nature Gish build, but with Druid not getting extra attack, this one just doesn't really play nice. But if you get this one as a ranger, this can look actually pretty scary good. With Shillelagh, you're going to use a bonus action to touch the wood of a club or quarterstaff that you're holding and imbue it with nature's power. For the duration, you can use your spellcasting ability instead of strength for the attack and damage rolls of melee attacks using that weapon, and the weapon's damage die becomes a d8. The weapon also becomes magical if it isn't already. The spell ends if you cast it again or if you let go of the weapon. This part of it right here, where the weapon becomes magical, this is kind of unusual for player characters, especially focused on like melee combat to get potentially at first level. On Druid, again, because they're not getting extra attack, this cantrip just doesn't really play super nice within the Druid loadout, but if you're going for that kind of nature Gish, you might look at dipping over to Ranger for a couple levels to get extra attack. Okay, I say a couple levels. You have 5 levels to get extra attack, right? At that point, you might as well just be playing a Ranger. Thorn Whip, this is the first thing that's kind of pushing you towards playing a controller Druid in a way. With Thorn Whip, this is going to have a range of 30 feet. It's going to just take 1 action, and this duration is instantaneous. You're going to create a long, vine-like whip covered in thorns that lashes out at your command toward a creature in range, so 30 feet. Make a melee spell attack against that target. If the attack hits, the creature takes 1d6 piercing damage, and if the creature is larger or smaller, you pull the creature up to 10 feet closer to you. Now, you want to know how to get a little bit more power out of this. What you can wind up doing is, if you're playing a race that has flight, you fly up into the air, up on top of the creature, right? And you thorn whip it and pull it 10 feet into the air. You do the 1d6 piercing damage, and then whenever it falls, it's going to take an additional 1d6 bludgeoning damage and get knocked prone. So if your party already has like high DPR covered by a warlock, wizard, or sorcerer, this could be the kind of thing to flesh out a bit more of the control. If you want to get a creature off of one of your buddies, this is a really good way to pull something out of the back line and into the midline with you, and hopefully get your frontliners up there in its face. One of the other things that makes their spellcasting so good is that Druid is a prep caster with full spellcasting progression, much like Cleric. It seems like that was sort of the theme that they wanted to go with, like, I guess, intelligence and wisdom as your spellcasting ability compared to charisma. I don't know, just seeing through lines here, but they are a prepared caster, meaning that here you're going to prepare the list of Druid spells that are available for you to cast. You don't have to, like, you're not limited by a number of spells you know. You just get to prep them by, like, consulting with nature or however you want to flavor that, to where you can choose a number of Druid spells equal to your wisdom modifier plus your Druid level. So here at first level, this is most likely about a 4. Right? It's kind of cool how that actually plays out. It's pretty similar to what other spellcasters are getting. But the spells must be of a level for which you have spell slots, so first level spells right here. Because of this, you have some flexibility here. If you don't like the spells that you got, guess what? You can go and pick some new ones. So you also change your list of prepared spells when you finish a long rest. Preparing a new list of Druid spells requires time spent in prayer and meditation, at least 1 minute per level of the spell for each spell on your list. So, I don't know too many people that really actually pay attention to this part of this really at all. And all the D&D I've ever run, this has never been a thing that's really come up. But your spellcasting ability is going to be Wisdom. So you're going to use that for your spell save DC and your attack modifier. Druid is also a ritual caster, meaning that if you have a Druid spell that you know that is a ritual, you can cast it without expending a spell slot. Moving on from there, you can also cast using a Druidic focus, as long as the spell doesn't have costly components to it. I'll go through and make mention of a couple spells here real quick. First level spells that we just know are really good. Maybe a stinker or two I'll point out to say, like, hey, maybe watch out for this one. But Druid's so flexible with their prepared casting that, like, you can try out as many of these kind of as you want. So with Absorb Elements, this one is a great pickup on Druid, mostly because Druid doesn't really have much of anything begging for its reaction in its core kit. So getting this one, I feel like once you pick this up, this is going to feel like I don't know how else to play a Druid without this spell right here. So what this does, you can use your reaction whenever you take acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. What's going to happen is you're going to get resistance to that damage type until the start of your next turn. And then, like it says here in the last sentence, the first time that you hit with a melee attack on your next turn, the target takes an extra 1d6 damage of the triggering type, and the spell ends. So if you want to go for that, like, Gish Druid, and you do want to go with, like, Shillelagh and maybe give that a shot, Absorb Elements and Shillelagh could be a pretty viable way to do that. But that's not to say that the spell is just for, like, Gish Druids or anything like that. This is just a great reaction to pick up. Next one is interesting, Beastmond. I think that this spell has a whole lot of potential. I haven't really turned this one out for a particular build, but I do think that Beastmond, let's say your DM is more, like, friendly to the idea of you're going to pick up animal companions as you go along. This one is going to feel like you should definitely have this on you. You know, what's kind of funny is, like, maybe if you go with this route of, like, Beastmond, maybe you have 2 druids and one of you is, like, focusing on wild shape, the other on spellcasting. Well, no, because its intelligence has got to be 4 or higher, and then, maybe if the other druid is dumping intelligence that far and you rolled for stat, oh god, I don't know. Beastmond, I really like this spell quite a bit. Maybe someone will come up with some build down in the comment section below that makes Beastmond just sound absolutely insane. I think this one just has a whole lot of potential, and yeah, I think this one's adorable. Charm Person, I find that this spell just gets diminishing returns the more people that have it in the party, because it just feels like, why? The creature's got to be a humanoid. I do think we know that the spell is good, but I would say that, like, there's other druid spells that you can be picking up. Maybe prep this one if you know that you're doing a whole lot more, like, social interaction, you know you're going up against a bunch of humanoids, then this one might be worth it to pick up, but yeah, I think that other classes are going to get just, I don't know, it's here, it's a flexible choice for you, I guess. There's Create or Destroy Water if you are in survival heavy campaigns, Cure Wounds if you want to focus on being the party healer. Maybe you want to provide additional support to if your party's got a cleric, here you go. On a druid, you're going to be pretty safe doing this, although you do miss out on some of the flexibility while you're wild shape to be able to do this. You could drop the wild shape and then hop, yeah, you're a little bit less reliable than what Cleric is going to be with, them taking Cure Wounds, but if you want to play as a party healer, maybe you're doing the variant like Wild Shape to where you can get a familiar instead, then this could be pretty useful. I say pretty useful. It's Cure Wounds. It's like the definitive curing spell in the game. Yeah. Detect Magic is a solid pickup. Detect Poison and Disease is kind of a big nothing burger. I think newer players are going to look at this spell and think like, oh yeah, like this is going to be a thing that I'm going to have to prep for. I know the DM is going to poison us at some point. I mean, sure, it'll come up, but like, I don't know. Detect Poison and Disease feels pretty meh. I don't know that this would be like in my like daily loadout for like adventuring spells. There's so many other first level spells that make me think that this one is like, it's just so forgettable. Earthtremor is where we start to see druids control identity in their spell list really kick on. This one is a little bit confusing on D&D Beyond, because of the way that the range and everything is, listed on here. Just real quick, basically, out from an area centered on you, any creatures within 10 feet of you are going to have to make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, they take 1d6 bludgeoning damage, and they get knocked prone. Now, the other cool thing to that, not only are you potentially doing the damage and then causing them to get knocked prone, but if the area is loose earth or stone, it becomes difficult terrain until cleared with each 5-foot diameter portion, requiring at least 1 minute to clear by hand. So not only are you knocking them prone, but you're potentially also lowering their speed. So they might not be able to move out of this area if their movement speed is like anything less than 20 feet. I do think that you should be able to ignore the difficult terrain in here because, with a certain druid subclass that does come into play, but Circle of the Land is just not really, Okay, we'll move on from that. Entangle. With Entangle as an action, grasping weeds and vines sprout from the ground in a 20-foot square starting from a point within range. For the duration, these plants turn the ground in the area into difficult terrain. A creature in the area, when you make the spell, or when you cast the spell, must succeed on a strength saving throw or be restrained by the entangling plants until the spell ends. A creature restrained by the plants can use this action to make a strength check against your spell save DC. On a success, it frees itself. So, with this, it just says it frees itself on a success. It's not ignoring the difficult terrain here. This is really nice. Like, this is a massive form early on of control for a druid that, like, boy, with this being a class exclusive here, if you're not specifically trying to build a blaster or just specifically a healer, man, Entangle should be a pickup for real. This one should probably be in your core kit. Now, going on from Entangle, we had a high control spell. Now we have a high debuffer spell, Fairy Fire. I've talked about this one in the past. I won't go into it huge here. Please check this one out. Fog Cloud, I've also heard a lot of people really got a lot of love out of causing the obscurement and potentially being a bit of like an environmental zoner in a way. This is actually a pretty impactful spell because it's causing the area to become heavily obscured and potentially make it to where you can't be targeted, or like any creatures in here can't be targeted. So yeah, Fog Cloud, pretty significant spell. Next up, we've got Goodberry. This one in survival heavy campaigns likely will need a nerf. Just make it, consume the material component here, DMs out there, and this one is probably okay. This is essentially going to be infinite food, like infinite, quote unquote, infinite. There's other combinations that people have tried to bring up with Goodberry, potentially restoring more hit points than it likely should with a combination of Life Domain Cleric and yada yada yada. I talked about why that combination doesn't exactly work over in the Cleric video. So yeah, Goodberry. Like I said, you talk with your DM at session 1 about how this spell, they want that to really function. If the table's not going to really feature a whole lot of survival heavy D&D, this one's pretty much harmless. Healing Word, another one I talked about in the Cleric video. Ice Knife. This is such a cool cinematic AoE. You're throwing this dagger of ice, it explodes. This thing is sick. Not only does it hit the target and deal the piercing damage, but everything within 5 feet of it has to make this dex save or take 2d6 cold damage. Like, oh, this is just sick. I love this one. Not only is it like, you can make the ranged attack here, bam, deal the 1d10 piercing damage if you hit, but whether or not you hit or miss, the dex save is kicking in here. God, I love Ice Knife so much. Okay, jump. Long Strider's a nice buff. Purify food and drink. It's a ritual. I would say prep it and then cast it as a ritual. Save your spell slots for other stuff. Yeah, that 10 minutes is not going to be a big deal for you. Snare's not bad. Speak with animals. Just role play interaction in there. And then lastly, there's Thunderwave if you want some more like elemental themed control, I guess we could say. You want to go with a more like stormy kind of thematic to your druid? Well, here you go. Getting over into Wild Shape at 2nd level. I know this is going to be a kind of long one, but it's going to go pretty fast. They don't have a whole lot of base class features. So Wild Shape, this is worth reading thoroughly to understand exactly how this thing works out. So starting at 2nd level, you can use your action to magically assume the shape of a beast that you have seen before. You can use this feature twice, and you regain expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. Your druid level determines the beast that you can transform into, as shown in the beast shapes table. At 2nd level, for example, you can transform into any beast that has a challenge rating of a quarter or lower that doesn't have a flying or swimming speed. You can stay in a beast shape for a number of hours equal to half your druid level rounded down. Right now this is just 1. You then revert to your normal form unless you expend another use of this feature. You can revert to your normal form earlier by using a bonus action on your turn. You automatically revert if you fall unconscious, drop to 0 hit points, or die. I did want to make mention of this real quick because I know that some people probably aren't aware of this interaction, but because this is a number of hours equal to half your druid level, this means that because this regenerates on a shorter long rest, it is possible for you to stay in beast form and regain your uses of Wild Shape like at the same time. I haven't seen a specific interaction of this, which I think is potentially game-breaking, but I will say that in the second bullet point, once we get there, I'll kind of talk about why I believe Wizards of the Coast most likely will be changing Wild Shape to only be like temporary hit points, not assuming the hit points and hit dice. While you're transformed, the following rules apply. Your game statistics are replaced by the statistics of the beast, but you retain your alignment, personality, and intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores. You also retain all of your skill and saving throw proficiencies, in addition to gaining those of the creature. If the creature has the same proficiency as you, and the bonus in its stat block is higher than yours, use the creature's bonus instead of yours. If the creature has any legendary or layer actions, you can't use them. When you transform, you assume the beast's hit points and hit dice. When you revert to your normal form, you return to the number of hit points you had before you transformed. However, if you revert as a result of dropping to 0 hit points, any excess damage carries over to your normal form. For example, if you take 10 damage in animal form and have only 1 hit point left, you revert and take 9 damage. As long as the excess damage doesn't reduce your normal form to 0 hit points, you aren't knocked unconscious. So, this right here, I think actually would limit the future of like what they could do with hit dice, because they're always going to have to be worrying about what Wild Shape could potentially do with hit dice. And yeah, now again, I think we've seen Jeremy Crawford in the past talk about if they were going to make a change to Wild Shape, most likely they're going to make this temporary hit points instead. But yeah, it's not the kind of thing I would worry about right now in any 5e games out there. I haven't heard of somebody. By now, I feel like I would have heard of somebody breaking the game with this. But anyways, so on to the next bullet point. You can't cast spells, and your ability to speak or take any action that requires hands is limited to the capabilities of your beast form. Transforming doesn't break your concentration on a spell you've already cast, however, or prevent you from taking actions that are part of a spell, such as Call Lightning, that you've already cast. You retain the benefit of any features from your class, race, or other source, and can use them if the new form is physically capable of doing so. However, you can't use any of your special senses, such as dark vision, unless your new form has that sense. And then this last paragraph is just about where your equipment goes, right? You can merge it into the form or whatever. So this fourth bullet point, I know this is a pretty wordy feature, but you're retaining the benefits of any features from your class, race, or other source. People have been trying to multi-class this over into, like, Barbarian to try and rage while in their beast form and all that. I love that idea so much. Like, go Totem Barbarian and then Wild Shape, and you can rage while you're like, oh, this is just so sick. I really, really love this idea so much. Wild Shape is extremely impactful. I'll make mention of a few that you can access here at first level that you should probably know about. And they give you the example right off the bat, Wolf. Wolf is a pretty solid one to actually transform into because it's getting pack tactics right here, as well as the bite, not just doing the 2d4 piercing damage, but you can also potentially knock the thing prone. Your speed is going to be 40 feet. The AC is a little bit low. You most likely have a higher AC as a just druid, but you can potentially like bark skin and shore that up. The other thing though is that you do get proficiency with perception and stealth here, so this is a solid all-rounder kind of for the early tiers of play. Eventually you'll probably pick up some other like CR, half beasts that are going to fit this a little bit better. But I will make mention of another beast that I think this is just hilarious because there's potentially some real spellcastery kind of shenanigans you can get up to with this one. And that is the Giant Badger. This one has a burrow speed of 10 feet. So with the burrow speed, if you're able to go underground and the thing can't get to you, it can't like target you. Like if you're able to cast something that requires concentration, and you really want that safety, Wild Shape into a Giant Badger, dig yourself underground, nothing can hit you. So what you can potentially do with a Giant Badger, since it has a burrow speed of 10 feet, you can cast a spell that requires concentration, dig underground, and just hang out underground while your spell is going off. Whatever, you have the safety and all that good. I don't know. I just think that the Giant Badger is so funny. Wild Shape. Eventually, it kind of lists what are the go-to like strong options here. Really, Crocodile is super solid right there. Whenever the max CR is half, and you can pick ones with a swimming speed. It's always kind of weird that you can't pick a frog until 4th. Yeah, but eventually at 8th level, you can just Wild Shape into a Giant Eagle. You get your fly speed. Yeah. Now, variant in Tasha's. Tasha's would allow you to use Wild Companion to use the use of Wild Shape to cast Find Familiar. I think that most likely this is all going to be build dependent. If you want to focus on spellcasting, I think that Find Familiar could be pretty solid to go with using Wild Shape to do this. Yeah, that's sick. The other strong part of this is that it's also just an action. You don't have to provide the material components. And Find Familiar usually takes an hour to cast. So, like, this is actually a pretty big feature right here to be an optional feature. Flavor your druid as you would like. If your table is cool with allowing for both, then, man, pretty solid pick. So, on top of all that mess, you're also getting your Druid Circle at 2nd level. This is your choice of subclass. It's going to grant you features at 2nd, 6th, 10th, and 14th levels. Real quick overview as to what these are kind of intended to do in combat. The Circle of Dreams, this is meant to be a support and healer. I do think that Circle of Dreams could probably use some more support in the form of an expanded spell list, but this is pretty good at doing the thing it wants to do. Circle of Spores, this is a necromantic druid that is able to cast Animate Dead and just do all kinds of sick, nasty stuff. The flavor on this one is just, mushroomy, Animate, yeah. You basically become a Myconid as you are playing this subclass out. The flavor on this one is just stellar, but I do think I remember some mechanical hangups kind of happening with Spores. I'll have to go back through and watch that review I did on it. Circle of Stars can be kind of open-ended, but I think most likely the role that it's looking at is going to be a range striking like spellcaster. The fact that you're getting Guiding Bolt, which 6 spell to pick up right here, you're getting the Guidance Cantrip as well, most likely telling you that you are playing some kind of a buffer, debuffer through the spells. Yeah. There's also the potential for you to specialize in healing if you just lock down Chalice. This one's flavor is pretty alright. I think that this one should be like the most appealing subclass to me for Druid, but I think that, I don't know, usually whenever I feel like I'm playing a class and I feel like I'm getting away with something, it just doesn't feel right, you know? Circle of Stars feels like it's getting a whole lot. Circle of the Land was originally meant to be, like I said, you have the wild shape side of Druid and you have the spellcasting side. Circle of the Land was meant to embrace the more spellcasting elements of Druid. Despite what I've seen people say online, it's not that this is a bad or unplayable or non-viable subclass right here. It's just that compared to Circle of the Moon, this one can feel a little bit underwhelming. This one, in terms of what it's going to do in combat, it has blaster potential, but really, I think that this is trying to reinforce controller in here, especially with the, where was it, the Nature's Land Stride, there we go. Moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can also pass through non-magical plants without being slowed by them, and without taking damage from them if they have thorns, spines, or a similar hazard. Whether or not your table is going to say that this is like the non-magical difficult terrain that you cause to happen through spells, right? Like we had talked about, I think it was Earth Tremor earlier. If the spell doesn't specifically state that it's difficult terrain or like magical difficult terrain, I would try to allow the land druid to work as optimal as it can with this. Ooh, and then we get to this one. All right, Circle of the Moon. This is a heavy tank, heavy tank, heavy striker. This one is terrifying. Circle of the Moon, like I said earlier on in the player's handbook, this was at the time the strongest subclass in the entire game. Actually, after Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, I still feel like this is one of the stronger options, verging on a little bit of overpowered. This one is going to continue to get stronger the more and more beasts that they keep putting into the game. Beasts of a CR as high as, like, it's 6, right? Like, 18 divided by 3? Yeah, 6. So, you being able to wild shape as a bonus action is already pretty nuts. That's already such a huge spike for you. You can also use a bonus action and expend your spell slots to regain hit points while you're wild shaped to stay in it longer if you would choose. Not only all that, but they're getting their elemental wild shape right here at 10th level, where they can transform here at 10th level into creatures that are CR. It's like 5? Yeah, CR 5, 5, 5. I thought one was a CR 6. But these wild shape transformations are insane. All these elementals, you can get, 90 feet of fly speed, damage resistance to lightning, thunder, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, and immunity to poison damage, on top of being immune to being exhausted, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, restrained, or unconscious. Earth Elemental has a 30-foot burrow speed, damage resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, vulnerability to thunder, which, damage immunities, poison, and all condition immunities, tremor sense, all that insanity. Fire Elemental, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical attacks, immunity to fire and poison damage, dark vision at 60 feet, water elemental, swim speed at 90 feet, that's pretty nice, resistance to acid, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, immunity to poison damage, and all those immunities. It should be no surprise that while this was appearing right next to land in the player's handbook, why people were overwhelmingly going to Circle of the Moon. Circle of the Shepherd is supposed to be a conjuration druid focused on bringing a bunch of stuff out onto the battlefield. This is cute. You love the idea. You love seeing it. This feels so Snow White, right? The problem with this subclass is that as the new summoning spells came out, they're not really compatible with this subclass anymore. It's weird. It looks like Wizards of the Coast is going to be moving away from the conjure spells that have been causing so much of a problem, where you can create 8 of these creatures and whatnot, over into just summon and create one creature. Circle of the Shepherd just needs to be able to get some of these the summoning spells in here. They need to work out well with the Mighty Summoner. I love this one. I've also heard stories about Circle of the Shepherd completely soloing adventure modules. People trying to run this up in a one DM, one player up against a module. I think there's a story online of Circle of Shepherd soloing Storm King's Thunder. This subclass is pretty nutty as well. Going up into Circle of Wildfire, I'm almost sad that they took out Fireball on this one. No, I am sad. Yeah, I'm sad. I really wish that they would have embraced the like blaster element of this one a lot more. Now we got a mix of like healer and it's not even, well, I guess you could say with Scorching Ray. But yeah, okay, I guess we'll say blaster, but I'll put that in quotation marks. I guess they just probably weren't comfortable with giving you like Fireball and Revivify in here. Yeah, maybe. But you're getting this cute Wildfire spirit that you can conjure. Again, I think that this one really wanted to be like I said, I think this one wanted to be a blaster, but I think Wizards was just scared to pull the trigger. In some ways, this almost feels like a Phoenix Druid. This is cute. I would love to play a Wildfire Druid at some point, for sure. Okay, so now that we've gotten subclasses out of the way, you're going to get your normal spellcasting progression going all the way up to 9th level spells. Just keep that in mind as we go through here, because there's not a whole lot of base class features. Now, Wild Shape is going to improve at 4th level. You're also going to get the ability score improvements. You don't have any other class features. You have your subclass one at 6th. You're going to get another Wild Shape improvement at 8th. 10th level, you're going to get your other subclass feature. Basically, you're going to have nothing but additional spells all the way up until 14th, where you get another subclass feature. And then the next feature you're going to get kicks on here at 18th level, Timeless Body. Starting at 18th level, the primal magic that you wield causes you to age more slowly. For every 10 years that pass, your body only ages 1 year. This is a Ribbon feature. This doesn't really have much mechanical weight in the game, like, at all. At all. I'm kind of curious why it didn't come on at 17th, actually, because now their 18th has got these two, but, like, I guess they got 9th level spells, but this one doesn't, this doesn't really have power budget. Okay, I'm going to move on. I won't critique it in this video. Beast spells. So, beginning at 18th level, you can cast many of your Druid spells in any shape you assume using Wild Shape. You can perform the somatic and verbal components of a Druid spell while in Beast shape, but you aren't able to provide material components. Now, I'm sure that there are certain spell combinations that make this just seem absolutely nutty. Personally, for me, I think at 18th level, this looks good because you're getting the openness here that it almost feels more quality of life, honestly. You're not having to prep as hard about like, yeah, these are the things I'm going to do to buff myself before I transform into a beast, right? By this point, most all druids are kind of stuck except for Circle of the Moon as like CR1 creatures. I'm actually going to knock this one down to a blue. Reason being, I was kind of thinking about this just with Moon and I was like, yeah, CR6, that's absolutely disgusting. Awesome, great. Except the Circle of the Moon is basically the only one that is wild shaping pretty constantly in order to, like, as its main combat thing, you know. Most everybody else is going to either prep that stuff if they're going to wild shape for combat. This works out as a purple for Circle of the Moon. For just about anybody else, I think that this one is actually kind of meh as an 18th level feature. Yeah, especially with subclasses that are getting alternate uses for wild shape, like Wildfire. Yeah, this one could actually be pretty bad. It's interesting. I would say that it probably gets better whenever we get to the next feature that we get here with Archdruid. So at 20th level, you can use your wild shape an unlimited number of times. Additionally, you can ignore the verbal and somatic components of your druid spells, as well as any material components that lack a cost and aren't consumed by a spell. You gain this benefit in both your normal shape and your beast shape from wild shape. You are insanely hard to kill. Like, Archdruid is effectively your immortal. Reason being, whenever you're assuming the beast's hit points, you just use your action to essentially heal back to full, like, quote unquote. Now sure, CR1 creatures, this could be kind of meh. Use some spells to buff yourself up and all that. Circle of the Moon at this point, now sure, this is a 20th level character, but you see the overall swing of power for Circle of the Moon compared to other druids. Them getting Archdruid right here is insane. Insanely strong. This is a capstone that is definitely cool on paper. I'm curious how many of you guys out there, leave in the comments down below, have actually played a druid all the way up to 20th level and how this one actually played out. In my mind, I know for Circle of the Moon that this is absolutely a purple, but for the other druids, I'm just not sure. So yeah, that's going to be it on this one. This is going to be a crazy one to edit. So I hope you all enjoyed. If you're new to the channel, I do a lot of D&D design focused discussion here on the channel and game design. So if that sounds like something that would interest you, why not subscribe if you haven't already? And I want to throw a huge shout out to my Patreon sponsors. Thank you all so much for helping me keep the lights on around here and coffee in my blood. Y'all are absolute heroes. And hey, go check out the Vanguard if you haven't already. I'm sure cards for that are down here and all that. Also, I'm an affiliate with Only Crits and Mini Worlds Tavern, so links for those affiliates are going to be down in the description below. Anyways, I hope you all are staying safe, staying healthy, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.